Hi, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Business Suit. My name is Kailei Carr. I am your host, and I am incredibly excited to have this conversation with you today and to bring some of my colleagues up to the stage in a moment. But before I introduce them or bring them to the stage, I wanted to set the stage for our discussion today. I recently discovered that June, as we are recording this in the last day of June, is Effective Communication Month. Who knew? Who knew? And I thought, we've been talking at the Asbury Group about getting our communication practitioners together for a conversation about communication and leadership. And what better time than Effective Communication Month to do so? So, I have with us today Dr. Amber Wright, Pascale Bourne, and Alex Cohen, who I'm going to bring to the stage now. Hello, hello, friends. How are you?
Hello, hello. Hi.
Great to see you.
Before we got started, there was a question of should we reveal that we had no idea there was an Effective Communication Month?
Yeah.
But we like to keep it real. We like to keep it real
We
in
have
the
to tell the
Asbury
truth.
Group.
That's honest communication. Yep.
Honest communication. That is a
Transparency.
key pillar, right? So, but we're still going to take advantage of the opportunity to have this conversation. So if you're joining us live on LinkedIn, feel free to put in the chat where you are joining us from. We would love to hear where you're joining us from. And during the conversation, if you have any questions that you want to pose to our group, we would be happy to do so. So I would love for our guests, our esteemed communication experts, to give a brief overview on each of them. So I would love for you all to share what is the big work you do in this world related to communication. So Dr. Amber Wright, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, Kylie, for bringing us together and allowing us to have this conversation. So my name is Dr. Amber Wright. I am a communication coach to executives and global teams. And the nature of my work is built on this idea that the quality of your life is directly influenced by your ability to communicate with confidence and with clarity. And so I love helping people find that clarity, which helps them build the confidence.
Well said. Words well said. Look at that. Yes. Alex, what about you?
Thank you, Kylie. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Cohen. I'm a communication coach, and I focus on bringing out the authenticity, the truth that we all have inside of us. I believe that we all have the tools, we all have the ingredients to be the most effective, authentic communicator that we were born with. And I help people discover what that is, uncover what that is, so that they can be more comfortable and effective in all of their communication situations.
Great, Alex. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Pascale.
Yes, yes. Good to be here with you all. Thank you, Kylie. So, my name is Pascale Bourne, and I am a speech language pathologist by training, now working as an executive communication coach. So, similar to Dr. Wright and Alex, I help people to become more comfortable and confident. I like to say that I bridge the gap between the soul of communication and the skill of communication. So helping to bring out the power of our voices that is within.
I love that. The soul of communication and the skill. And I just created a new word, skull. Skull, the soul. The soul of the skill. If you all hadn't already picked up, we're just going to have a conversation, and there's probably going to be a lot of laughter in it. and jokes and puns, and you all will just observe this conversation. So I think a great place for us to start is this idea of what is effective communication in the first place? You know, we, in our space of working with leaders, we talk a lot about being whole people, right? Whole person, human centered and conscious. And communication is a big part of that. But what does that mean? Like, how would each of you define what effective communication is?
Hmm. I'll go first. I think for me, as I'm processing that question, and thinking about my work and the things that people tell me and my clients say, effective communication, when it happens when what you're thinking in your brain is the same as what comes out of your mouth, and it also lands the way that you intended with the other person. And that process is actually very difficult because what we think, by the time it gets from here to here, it's always something completely different. And it doesn't always land the way that we intend for it to. So knowing how to be mindful and, like you said, conscious of and even intentional about what we're trying to say, the words that we use, the tone, the setting, and all that. I think it takes that type of mindfulness so that there can be some type of alignment and thoughtfulness and intention with how the things come out. But that takes a little bit of work and effort. And if we can master that effort, I don't even know if I want to use the word master, but if we can be mindful of that effort, I think we can be more effective in our communication. What about you, Pascale?
Oh, good.
I was going to say, you summed it up really nicely. I think the only other thing I would add to it is that when you finish saying whatever it is that you wanted to say, or you thought you wanted to say, however it came out, effective to me is you feel comfortable with that interaction, that you walk away not questioning and wondering, did that land the way I wanted it to? Did they hear me the way I intended them to hear? Did I say everything that I wanted to say? So effective is really, I think, internal, but I think oftentimes people look for that external validation. They want to hear that others receive, and that's, part of the communication. It's being in communion with other people. But when I think about it being quote unquote effective, it has to land here, right? And eventually also be what your listeners needed for them, from you.
Anything else you want to add, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I love listening to both of you, and I agree. Adding on to that, because I 100% agree with both of you said that there is an element of effectiveness that goes maybe beyond the words, and just being present with the person you're communicating with, and really honing in, anchoring on the energy of that other person. There's an element of that of course needs to be there to be effective, and I'm learning that maybe that's what I'm noticing is the beginning of everything else that you both mentioned, is that
Well, I think we may have lost Alex there. He froze on our end, but he was about to say something really good.
Yeah, it out.
Ah, I know all of us right now, Dr. Amber, Pascale, and I are currently in the US, and Alex is traveling in Asia right now. So um, ah, I think, Alex, if you can hear us, I think we don't see your face, but we see that you're there and you're currently on mute. So if you, there you go. All right. So you were about to say something really good.
I apologize. I am overseas right now, so my internet connection is, well, not cooperating, to say the least. So I apologize. Are you able to hear me at all?
We can. And you were getting ready to talk about the first step.
Yes. I was saying that I agree, Dr. Amber, with what you said. Pascale, I love what you said. To add to that, I'm noticing that maybe the first step, or in some situations, the first step is just being present with the people that you're communicating with, the person that you're communicating with, and that presence initiates effectiveness. That presence in itself might be what makes it effective, and everything else connect and flow. So that's an element that maybe goes beyond the content or any other more obvious part of communication, and is the essence of it. Kind of reminds me, Pascal, of the soul meeting the skill potentially.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And I would love for us to explore this a little bit more, and particularly around what gets in the way. Like, what gets in the way of us having the connection between what we want to say and how it's received, between the soul and the skill, between the, ability to be present. What what are some of the things that get in the way that prevent us from having or effectively communicating?
I'll say in my practice, what I have seen with my clients is they are layering on this idea of what a public speaker is supposed to look like, supposed to sound like, and sometimes they're stepping away from who their authentic selves are. So I always think of this example that Oprah Winfrey said, and I know Kailei, you have are familiar with this example when she talked about when she first got into not public speaking specifically, but reporting. She loves Barbara Walters. She loved Barbara Walters and would watch tapes and tapes and tapes of her practicing her intonation, her style and delivery. And so much so that when she went to talk about Canada, she said something like Canada. And it was like, where did that come from? And what that is an example of when you are not staying in alignment with your authentic self, how being the most effective gets in the way. So I always think being your authentic self is at the heart of everything. And when we are putting on the mask, literally, it gets in the way. It really does. And from putting on the mask to then getting into our heads instead of being present with people, being more present with the content, I find that gets in the way a lot as well. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be familiar with our content, we shouldn't review our content, but a lot of times people like rehearse their content so much so that they can't just be present with people. They're present with getting the words right.
So good. It's more about performing than it is about being present.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Anything else that you all think gets in the way?
I literally wrote that sentence for a podcast episode I'm going to record later. It's on a different topic though, but it's about like faking it and how when you pretend, you rob yourself of presence.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's crazy that you
Ooh.
yeah.
Okay, so clearly this is something we need to talk about more, because I do think, we talk in the Asbury Group about the different states of consciousness, and we exist, we think, we know or get in the knowing or flowing state, or the being / creating space. And when I think about performance, that's something that we are taught to do. Like, you study and then you rehearse and then you deliver. But to your point, if that is where it ends, we're not connecting with people. We're not able to really be able to tap into what is needed. So, do you have any thoughts for those leaders who may be listening and thinking that them performing, or even, putting on a persona, is what has worked for them to help them deepen their communication in a new way?
Yeah, I think one thing I want to make sure that we're clear about what we're saying is that we're inviting any leader that's listening to reject the idea that they have to perform, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to prepare. as what
Yes.
Pascal was saying.
Mhm.
Let's be clear.
Distinguishing
You
there.
need to get ready for the town hall and you need to prepare for that. But in your preparation, there is space for you to be authentic. I tell my clients, and this comes from all of my years of teaching, you should rehearse your presentation if you have one, for example, a minimum of 5 times out loud, so that you can hear how you sound. That's the only opportunity that you have to sit in the seat of the audience, to know what it's like to experience you as a speaker. And also that helps you get comfortable with the words in your very body, like as you're getting them out. I talk with my hands. It took many, many years for me to be able to train myself to sit here and have a conversation with you all in this way and not have my hands be all in the frame. Because I've learned to modify that and to be mindful of it. I'm not being inauthentic to my true self. It's just me being mindful of the setting. So I think that there is a way to find harmony between preparation and presence that doesn't require you to perform in this way that feels false, because people can tell. And then you're being robotic and then you don't enjoy it. And people will say to us, I'm sure, as professionals in this space, like, oh, I hate public speaking. And I'm like, I know, it's so bad. But it doesn't have to be as bad as you're making it out to be. When we can take the time to find what that harmony looks like for you, the individual, because it's going to look differently for all of us, and that's okay.
So good. So good. And Alex, I know that you work with leaders a lot on preparation for town halls. So, or those all hands meetings. So, anything else that's coming to mind for you when you think about the preparation that you provide leaders for those types of circumstances that allow them to let their authenticity shine through?
Yeah, it's a great question. And Dr. Amber, I really, really agree with what you're saying, because there's an element of focusing on the right thing, preparing for the right thing. And, and if we make that intention initially, if we plan on focusing on the quote unquote right thing, then we do bring our authentic self. We feel more comfortable in that situation. Things seem to flow better. But what tends to happen is folks will, I think it's part of human nature. We all tend to focus on things that distract us from the outcome that we want. So we almost begin to prepare for the wrong thing. For example, we start to worry about things going wrong. We start to think about things that pull us away from our core message or from connecting with our listeners. So it might be as initially as simple, and this is just distilling it down almost superficially, but beginning with the intention of focusing on the things that matter and then going from there.
Yeah, I love what you just said, and I'm going to jump in here, Alex, because I think the right thing that will help them to get started on what is that's most important is really connecting to your emotion. What is it that you feel, and what is it that you want your audience to feel? Maya Angelou says people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And oftentimes leaders are just trying to get through the content, just trying to get through these bullet points, just trying to get through these slides, just trying to tell the people whatever it is that I've been told or I feel that they need to hear, but they're not connecting to, well, are you excited about this? Are you frustrated by it? Are you trying to motivate people? Like, when you connect to the feeling, then I really believe that the all of the fine tuning things that people typically come to one of us professionals to work on, the tips and tricks, that those things start to come organically together. So I agree with what both of you all said, and specifically Alex, about the right thing is, how do you feel? Won't separate the feeling from the words and the experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're human, right? Humans have emotions, and the unfortunate thing is that oftentimes in our corporate cultures, we remove the emotion, remove the feelings because we've been taught that that is not appropriate at work.
Mhm.
But we are humans. We are human beings. We're not robots. So when we are leading people, when we are people leading people, sharing the emotion can allow connections to take place. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Pascale. I would love to talk a little bit about your backgrounds because each of you have really interesting backgrounds that have led you to the work that you do in communication and also allow for you to um, approach communication and strengthening, helping leaders strengthen communication in different ways. And I know for Alex and Pascale, you are both trained as speech language pathologists and now work with leaders. And Dr. Amber Wright, you started or earlier in your career you were a communication professor, and so and now work with leaders. So since Pascale, since you were just talking, we're going to come back to you. Would love for you to share how your background and training as a speech language pathologist now helps to inform and strengthen the work that you do with leaders.
Absolutely. I'll tell you that what Alex and I are doing as speech pathologists is not as common as I wish it was, to be quite honest. So we were trained to work with people who had a disorder, something physically wrong, something, anatomically wrong that they needed to work on. And so we were providing therapy to people. But what I loved most about the therapy that I was providing that I didn't recognize or even had language around was the coaching part of it, right? So yes, here are these exercises, but let's get to the root of things. If you're dealing with somebody who's having difficulty following through on a therapy regime or exercise regime that we may give, it's kind of getting to that cellular level, the things that help motivate us and drive us forward. Those were the parts of being a clinician that I enjoyed the most, working with caregivers to help support. And so what I've brought forward into what I'm doing now with executive communication, I absolutely, I can still listen because voice is my love. I can still listen for any disorders that may exist there, but that's not as common as the thread that I saw carry through, which is that we all need to connect at that level to what's going on for us, because I believe that how we express ourselves, it's an outward expression of what's going on inwardly. And so that's the part that I tie into the work that I did before. Absolutely love it.
Wonderful. Alex, what about you?
I was smiling, Pascal, because yeah, very, very similar. For us, I'm also a speech language pathologist, like Pascal. Kylie, you mentioned that. For our work to be effective, we have to become really good listeners. We have to sit with the folks that we're working with, the patients in the hospital that have had an anatomical change or a disorder or injury. And we have to sit with them and really listen to not just them, but their caregiver, like you said, Pascal, their family members, and take in them as an entire, more than just themselves, but their ecosystem, like their immediate extended family almost. And as we got better at that, I think, Pascal, I'm saying we now, because we're very similar in that sense, we're able to bring that over and bring those listening skills to the executives, the leaders that we work with, understanding that it's not just them.
Oh, we lost him again.
He's
I
coming.
think we did.
Oh,
It's like right when it's getting really good. So while we're waiting for Alex to come back, Dr. Amber, if you could share how your experience and your experience being a professor, a communication professor, has
yeah.
impacted the work that you do with leaders.
It's been so long now. It feels like a lifetime. Well, I mean, it was a lifetime ago, um, but it hasn't been at the same time because the work has continued, but the classroom has changed.
Mm.
And I mean, honestly, when I think about this work, and it goes back even to when I was an undergrad and I was a liberal studies major, and I had a couple of communication studies classes with the same professor. And the second time I took her, she said, you know, you're like, did you know that you're unusually good at this? And I said, no, I didn't. And she said, did you know we had a major? And I was like, no, I didn't. So this through line for me has been communication studies as a discipline helped me understand myself. And it helped me to see the world in a way of like, oh, language and behavior go hand in hand. And I've been fascinated by that ever since. And so my 8 years as an adjunct professor really informed and deepened that sense of curiosity about communication and behavior and how they dance together. And so what I loved about that experience for me is it really taught me how to reach people from all kinds of different walks of life, because you get the gamut of people in a college classroom, from veterans. I always had students who were older than me, who had different life experiences than me, cultures, races, backgrounds. And so we all kind of have the same challenges, though, when it comes down to how we communicate. And that was a really beautiful time in my life because I felt like it was a privilege to be able to witness and bear witness to the fact that everybody got the same, we all have the same kind of challenges. And if we can work through them, because we all want to be seen, heard, and valued. We're all asking that, even if it's in a different language. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Do you value me? And communication is the way in which we get the answers to those questions. And I'm still to this day fascinated by it. So then with leaders, as you said, leading people now, there's this shift that happens. And we see this in our clients at the Asbury Group where, you know, I tell them, at some point in your career, you come up out of the weeds. It was the weeds that got you to where you are. Now you're tending to a garden, and that garden is a garden of people. And you have to be able to tend to your garden. And that has to do with your communication skills. And so the better you are at that, the better you'll be at leading.
So good. So good. Let's talk a little bit more about conscious leadership and the role that communication plays in that. And we talked about presence being one of those ways. Pascale, what else would you say in terms of how how communication is a part of conscious leadership?
Yes, I would say that leaders who are really looking to drive results in a purposeful way, not just trying to get through the metrics, need to look at the way they are leading as communicators from that conscious level. And communication, if you are really just in that existing phase of consciousness, you're just kind of getting through, then your communication is going to be reflective of that. And so when I think of clients that tell me things like, well, I'm just not getting the results. And, you know, I said this, but people keep asking me questions or want me to repeat. And I felt like I said it. That makes me question whether they were really consciously present with the people and the message versus just trying to get through those bullet points. So that connection to really, what is it that you are hoping people will take away from what you're sharing? That leads us up on that scale of conscious communication. So going from just existing and just kind of getting the words out, comparing that to really embodying the emotion that you are feeling and you want people to walk away with. That experience leads to the results that you want. When people feel something, then they're ready to act on something. But oftentimes as leaders, we try to jump from just trying to get you aware of what it is that you want them to know about, but not thinking about how, you know, why should they buy into what you're saying? Why should they be ready to act? It requires us to communicate at a higher level of consciousness and being connected to why it matters. Why does this matter to the person that you're talking to? That's a higher level of consciousness and communication that I find really helps people to get the results that they want. Like Amber said, wanting to feel validated and seen and heard. Your listeners want that from you, but you have to start within yourself in order for them to get to that point with you.
100%. I would love to talk about the role that communication plays when we're building connections with other people. Because at the end of the day, again, we are people working with people, people leading people. And if someone is working in a leadership capacity, they have their team members that they're building connections with, they have their peers, they have senior leaders, and all of that. So Dr. Amber, I know that one of the things that you do really well with leaders is helping them to strengthen their teams through relationships. So, what are some ways that leaders can really strengthen that well in building those trusted relationships through their communication?
Oh, that's a really great question. Um, in my work, I make a lot of comparisons to parenting and leadership, with the disclaimer for anybody watching that if you lead, your team are not your children. Okay, so
Yes, let's be clear.
you cannot treat them as though they are your children, but where the themes overlap is that I'm the parent of a teenager, for example. Sometimes I have to remember what it was like to be a teenager in order to meet her where she's at and to step into her world. And when I'm able to do that, my shoulders relax a little bit, because it's just like, oh, I remember wanting to go to the mall. Now I don't want to go to the mall. That doesn't make any sense to me as a pastime. But she loves to go to the mall. That's what they love to do. But I had to remember what it was like in the late 90s, wanting to be at the mall, right? So taking that step to remember and to step in. And I think sometimes it could behoove leaders to remember what it was like when you were in the place where your team member was at, or where they are, when they were when you were striving to ascend up the ladder and get your sea legs about you. The first time you had people report to you, just making that, like we were saying earlier, Kailei, that point of human contact, and just remembering that this is a live person on the other side of this Slack message, this email, this text message. This is a real person with something that they are turning away from in order to turn toward the work. And if we can have a remembrance of that and a sensitivity to that, and I think that informs our approach to just say, hey, let's check in really quickly. I'd like to know how you're doing, really. How is your workload, really? Where can I support you? Do you feel supported by me, really? Those types of questions, and being open to receive the answer, because we are so afraid of the F word, feedback. We really love to give feedback, but we don't always like to receive it. But feedback is a two-way street. It's a boulevard. It's a two-way street. I think that's how we really set the stage for developing relationships that can be reciprocal and supportive, and even nourishing in some respects in the workplace. But I do think that it is like the leader taking that step to having that point of remembrance, and stepping into the world of your team and reaching your hand out to support them as best as you can. So this is not coddling, and this is not, enabling bad behaviors and things of that nature, but just really showing up by setting this intention first to say, I want to be a supportive leader, and then demonstrating actions that support that notion. And I think giving your people time and space to trust that that's true, and then building it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Can I piggyback on that a little?
Sure, absolutely.
I love everything that you just said, Amber. And I think where leaders perhaps miss the mark sometimes is when when they are presenting to them or sharing some sort of information, but not having that true connection point, you can lose people in your audience. So I think, sharing the bottom line up front, sharing the pain point that the audience may be feeling, lets them know like, oh, okay, you get me. You're not just here yapping about what you think, is most important on this agenda, but you understand where I'm coming from. That is so critical, because once you kind of establish, and the way that you do that can be a variety of things. You can survey your team, you can talk to them directly and try to find out what are their pain points, because that's that connection point. People want to know that you get where they are. Once they understand that you get where they are, then it opens them up for whatever else you want to share. It opens them up for the action that you want them to take, or even the change in mindset that they need to have in order to do the thing that you need them to do. So just wanted to add that to what you were saying.
That's great. And I would love, I'm thinking about a scenario, because a lot of the leaders that we work with through our leadership programs, oftentimes they're hand selected as high potential people. Like we see you as someone who has a lot of runway in our organization, or that you are, could be in a future leadership role, maybe a higher role, or even, you can go really far. That being said, if somebody is maybe not as comfortable, maybe they're not as comfortable in building relationships with people who are in more senior positions than them, maybe sharing about themselves, or what they have done well is uncomfortable for them, or maybe they feel intimidated by people who are more senior, and there might be some discomfort when they're trying to build those relationships with them. What advice would you have for someone in any of those types of circumstances to help them to communicate effectively and have some of those warm connections with those more senior leaders?
Hmm. Hmm. You know what came up for
Did
me?
I stump the communication experts?
You know what came up for me is don't project your stuff onto them.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
That's why I had to
good.
pause with it. I had to sit with that for a second, because I think so. There's so much that can, in corporate spaces and in work environments, there is a lot of pontificating and parading around with these titles. It's like these titles are these banners that kind of fly behind people, like, oh, that's the VP of such and such and such and such, or that's the chief such and such and such, and it just kind of, and but they're just people. They're just people.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we forget that. And some of that is cultural. And sometimes it's intended to be that way. The culture of the environment perpetuates that, like, oh, that's such and such. You can't just. And I believe that communication is contextual, obviously. I mean, the way that even how we are here as experts on this live, it's very different than when we're, at dinner as friends, right? So, but we're all still the same people inherently. And so if you are someone who's like, oh, I want to reach out to this person, it's like, oh, only you are in charge of kind of in some respects, your professional destiny. And all of the projection of like, oh, are they going to want to talk to me? Or are they going to want to, and you won't. My mother used to say, the answer is already no if you don't ask. The answer is already no if you don't ask. But that fear of rejection and the fear of what are they going to say, or what are they going to think about me, or am I too small? Your voice matters too. Your presence matters too. And maybe you might make their day to give them an opportunity to offer some support. They might be looking for someone to mentor you, but you never know. The answer will be no unless you ask. So yeah. This is it. Just to kind of be mindful of not giving away what isn't theirs to hold, and stand in the truth of like, I want this to be a shared experience. And I'm going to extend my hand and say, hi, my name is Amber. I work in this department. I'd love to meet you and learn more about you and your work and your journey. Would you have time for us to meet briefly on Thursday at 2 p.m. or whatever? And go from there.
So good. And simple, right?
Yes.
It doesn't
Yes.
have to be all
All of it.
complicated and heavy and everything. So I love that. Pascale, I think you're going to chime in.
Well, no, I was just going to say, I just want to acknowledge how that could feel uncomfortable for some. But to your point, Amber, just recognizing that there are people and knowing that when we take one small step forward, then it becomes more comfortable. It just takes that one step. And like Amber said, you just never know what's waiting for you until you take that one small step. It might seem like the step is in the dark.
Yes.
On the step, then it lights up. Then the path becomes illuminated one step at a time. And so just encouraging you to do that. I remember, I'll share one thing. I used to work for, I still do some work with a communication consulting firm. And there was a lot of hype about when I first started with this firm. I was the newbie on the team. And because nobody else was available, I was given a client who was the CEO of a major organization. And it was kind of like, oh my goodness, are we going to give her the CEO? And I promise you, for a moment, I was like, oh my goodness, am I prepared? Can I do? All of that was in my head. And once I started our session together, he had the same communication concerns and issues as everybody else, even though he had made his way up the ladder to have that title. Don't get it twisted and think that these people are not, because they have a title, don't have some of the same concerns and fears. If anything, the only thing that happens as you get that high up the ladder is sometimes you just don't get the feedback. So you just kind of sit in this assumption that either I'm killing it or maybe I'm not, but I don't know because nobody's going to tell me. So yeah, just go for it. Just go for it.
Yes, I have seen the same thing. No matter how high somebody is in the organization, we all have things that we're working on. We all have insecurities. We all have challenges and beliefs and dreams and stories. We all have stories that matter. And so I love that acknowledgement. Let's talk about some of those common challenges. You two have both, seen a lot of clients, worked with a lot of clients over the years. So much that would be hard to quantify, I'm sure. And I bet there have been some common themes that you've seen. So would love to hear what some of those common themes, those common sticking points that you have seen in the clients that you've worked with.
Oh gosh.
Without naming names, of course.
No, of course.
Just themes.
You want to go first, Pascale?
Say it again.
Do you want to go first?
Oh, I mean, if you've got something on your mind, go ahead.
I would say most common, fear of being judged, fear of being rejected, and forgetting who you are.
Ooh.
Most of them fit in those three categories.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of being judged, fear of being rejected, and forgetting who you are.
So good.
I would agree with that. And the forgetting who you are part, I kind of think of that as the connection piece. We've talked about the connection in different ways, but connecting to who you are and knowing that you have again, we are human, we all have concerns, but that we also have power. So remembering that you have power, that you are not in the place that you are in without somebody thinking that you have the right to be there. So we want you to communicate like you have the right to say what you're saying, like you have the right to be in that space. I think people shrink themselves a lot. And I think the awareness part is big as well. Like not really knowing when you are not really connected to yourself and not connected and being present in the space, sometimes you're not aware of whether you are communicating effectively or not. And that awareness part is just being present with yourself and being present with the people. I promise you that will come through. So I use this example that sometimes, and I'm sure people here can relate. You've said something, you've gone through this presentation, you've gone through this speech, and you walk away and you're like, I don't know how that landed. I have no clue, because my mind left the room. Like, my body was there, the words were coming out of my mouth, but I have no idea how I did. Awareness is about being present to yourself, and knowing whether it landed well or not is you being aware of your listeners, like really being connected to them. So that can show up in a lot of different ways. Like I said before, really being caught up in the content, but I've also seen people like literally not make eye contact because they don't want to receive what is being shared. Your audience is always communicating with you, not necessarily through words, but with their body language, their facial expressions. And so we miss something when we're not really connected to people in that way.
That's good.
So good. So good. One thing that I know that you specifically work with, or both of you have experience in, is working with people who are, public speaking, right? And getting out of their own way with public speaking. So let's say I'm preparing for a speech, and I'm delivering some content. Maybe it's a speaking engagement. Maybe it's an intro at a company meeting. What are two things that I need to be mindful of as I'm heading in and starting to prepare?
I was going to say, prepare yourself, not the words, but yourself. So I think the more that we have, I don't want to use the word control, but like just really connected to yourself. So if that is, I love to use visualization. I love to do deep breathing. Anything that brings you back to yourself is going to allow you, because most times you are not the person leading the meeting or the person who's going to give a presentation and you don't know what you're talking about. So if you can really prepare yourself, the words, the things that you need, the message that you're about to share is going to come forward, even if you don't get the exact words right, because you know what you're talking about. So releasing that anxiety by first just be present to yourself, dealing with the nerves that might come up, using, like I said, the deep breathing, relaxing the body, and visualizing yourself executing what you intended to do will allow most times everything to flow organically without having to get so caught up in the words. So that's the first thing I would say. And then secondly, instead of thinking about yourself giving a presentation, think about giving a series of one-on-one conversations. A series of one-on-one conversations. So what that looks like is that I'm not just out there like just sharing all of this content, but I'm connecting with people with my eyes, my body, my voice, and the message. So even if it's a group of like 500 people, single out one person at a time, share one thought with them, then find somebody else in that audience, share another thought with them. And if you focus on, I'm just sharing a little bit of information with this person, a little bit of information with this person, then it becomes a conversation instead of a presentation.
So good.
Yeah,
Dr. Amber, what about you?
I love that framing of multiple mini conversations. The best public speaking tips I think that I can give is deliver your 3-point play. That's when we talk about preparation, come with your 3 points, because 2 is not enough and 5 is too many. So if they give you 20 minutes, what are 3 key points that you want to deliver in that time frame? If you're speaking at a conference, for example, I always tell my clients that you are training the audience to talk about you in the hallway. What do you want them to say about you in the hallway? It's like, oh, did you hear Pascale? She talked about this, this, and this. They're going to remember those 3 points. So keep it simple. And also remember that it's about them and not you.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
about them and not you, in the sense that you are the expert for those 20 minutes. That's already been decided, which is why you're there. So you don't have anything else to prove. You just have to share and have a conversation with them about what you know. And what you know is intended to help them. And have a good
So
time.
good.
Mhm.
And have a good time.
Good time.
Yes. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
People will feel that too.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we are coming to the close of our time. If you are watching right now and you have any burning questions, please put them in the chat. But as we close, would love to hear any final thoughts that you have that those who are listening can take with them to add to their toolbox to boost some of their confidence in their ability to be great communicators.
I'll share my favorite tool ever, ever, ever is a pause. There's
Mm.
so much power in a pause. And oftentimes we don't give ourselves permission to pause. We worry about, am I taking up too much time, too much space? But a pause can allow you time to breathe. A pause can give you time to think. A pause can get your head right when you might be worried about judgment. You can center your thinking, reframe your thinking in that pause. There's just so much. It lets you reconnect to your body. So don't be afraid of the pause. Try it out. It's very easy to implement once you give yourself permission to do so.
Mm. Oh, that's good. So this is just like parting words, final advice. Stay curious,
Mm.
I would say, and save this live stream. We've offered a quick little class because it's really it's not. I mean, I don't mean this to belittle the quest to learn about it, because I mean, it just says to stay curious, but it takes practice, it takes time, and it takes intention. And listening to things like this and then applying what you've learned, even do it scared, but still do it. And you'll see the difference when someone responds differently to you and you're like, oh, it's that. Stay curious about how you can continue to grow. And I think that will serve you for a really long time.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you so much. I know that we lost Alex along the way. The technology was at technologying, but we have to roll with it sometime. So we'll have to invite Alex back for another conversation. But so appreciate all of your insights, your wisdom, your expertise. I know that we have the best team, period. And our bench strength when it comes to communication is deep. And it is truly, truly a blessing. So if you all are interested in connecting with any of our guests today, through LinkedIn, we have everybody there, so you can feel free to connect via LinkedIn. If you're listening to the podcast, feel free to go to the archives and the show notes at beyondthebusinesssuit.com, where you will find how to connect with each of our practitioners and experts today. So with that, Dr. Amber Wright, Pascale Bourne, and Alex Cohen, thank you so much for being with us. And thank you all for joining us today. And we will see you next time. Be well.